What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of Loot Chest on Tasty Loot Gaming, the show where we talk about a random topic in gaming. My name's Seth.
I'm Chevy.
I'm Chris.
And for this episode, I want to kind of go back to earlier in this channel where we had a show where we were doing called Early Impressions, where we talked about our earliest impressions of consoles and video games. And we're going to try and continue this series as we've already done Dreamcast, Nintendo 64, and the Xbox One. I think it's an interesting topic to talk about, and why not? On this episode, we're going to be talking about the PlayStation, which came out in 1995 in North America, 1994 in Japan, and a bunch of other dates in other countries. We're going to be talking about, when we first tried the thing, what we thought of it, and some favorite games. So anybody want to start?
I remember the first time we got one. It was shortly after it was released in America with my dad's house, and just the loading screen alone, that noise of the initial startup just was fucking amazing to me. 95, I was about 13 years old, give or take.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just mind-blowing. I played a lot of JRPGs on those games. That was like the biggest era for JRPG for me.
Oh, definitely.
A lot of Tomb Raider, but like Tomb Raider always seemed kind of like weird to me because it's polygon. It was the best I could do at the time.
Mm.
But JRPGs like just blew my fucking mind.
Well, I've talked about this multiple times with Chevy, but like the PlayStation was absolutely the golden age of JRPGs for sure. PS2 is a close second. After that, they kind of dwindled. Mm-hmm. I remember playing the PlayStation for the first time at a friend's house. I went over there and they had just gotten one. And this is back when they still had the original PlayStation cases that were like huge plastic or cardboard things you'd open up. They quickly changed those to like CD jewel cases, which was more convenient. I can't imagine a world where things bigger than DVD cases, are filling your shelf. Smart move on their part. And the games I remember playing first was Armored Core, the original Resident Evil before Director's Cut came out, and it was some platformer. I can't remember what the hell it was. But I just remember playing Armored Core for the first time, and this is coming from like playing Sega, Super Nintendo, 2D stuff, some games that try to mimic 3D, and actually being able to like freely move around in like a forest. Even back then, being able to upgrade and change out parts to your mech. Fighting mechs or whatever, knocking trees down, blew my fucking mind. Oh, Twisted Metal as well. That was one of the first games I played. Mm-hmm. That game was a blast, but Resident Evil really hit me. Before this, there wasn't really a whole lot of survival horror games. There's games that kind of delve into horror themes, but like outside of like Alone in the Dark, there wasn't really games like that. And I just remember even like the first intro scene with like the actual like real actors playing out the parts, on a disc you could have video, and that just like blew my fucking mind.
It's back when they used to use FMVs instead of CGI.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And just having that immersive experience of watching something cinematic and then playing in the mansion and running to that first zombie that you run into that turns around, you have to fight him. After that I was like, holy shit, I have to get one of these. The controller's really interesting too, because prior to that, everything kind of wasn't standardized. Everything kind of had like, a basic shape with buttons on it. But the PlayStation was the first like console that I played that had essentially what is standard now. The 4 buttons, D-pad, and 2 shoulder buttons a piece on each side.
No analogs yet. Though.
No analogs yet, which was fine at the time. Once they introduced analogs, that was really interesting. We can get into that in a sec, though. What do you remember early on?
Resident Evil, same. We played it at the same place, though.
Yeah.
I don't remember playing Armored Core that early on, though. I remember playing that later for some reason.
Oh, I do.
I do, too.
I know there was a second game, and I'm thinking it was...
Ridge Racer.
I am thinking it was Twisted Metal.
Yep.
Thinking back on it now. And I remember really liking it then. It has not grown with me.
No, I actually did an episode on that a while back on Twisted Metal 2, and even though it is still slightly fun, it does not carry well to nowadays.
Though I do think Resident Evil, even still, though the awful controls, I still think holds up pretty well. Yeah,
actually, this month for PlayStation Plus, in Plus Club, Resident Evil Remastered, which is the remaster of the remake that was on GameCube. I played that a little bit already. The game's still fucking fun. Doesn't look as good as I remember looking though, but I mean it still holds up.
Other than that, I mean, some of my earlier memories, especially like you kind of said, I had dabbled in JRPGs in Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo quite a bit
Shining
before
Force,
that.
Phantasy Star.
And Super Mario RPG on the Super Nintendo was a big one for me.
Chrono Trigger.
Chrono Trigger.
Secret of Mana.
Oh fuck yeah.
So when we got into playing PlayStation games, I was kind of curious to play those kind of games again, and I know the first one I got my hands on happened to be Final Fantasy VII.
And everything changed.
And everything did change for me. So I, in fact, because of playing JRPGs on the PlayStation, I ended up going back and playing more 16-bit ones that I had missed just because I felt like I had maybe missed out on something that game had offered. And it just happened to be that 7 had offered so much. So
that's one thing that the PlayStation did for me is kind of solidified the future of gaming, essentially. So before that, games are fun, they're cool. I enjoyed them, obviously. I've always loved video games ever since I was a kid. But I remember playing Metal Gear Solid for the first time, and I had no fucking idea what the hell I was playing. And I remember trying to play it a couple times and not really getting into it too much. But when I sat down and started playing it, I was just blown away by the amount of interesting dialogue, the really cool storyline, and just the really cool cinematics. Plus, it was probably one of the first like stealth games that I ever played, and it defined stealth games, and just completely like no other game before blew my fucking mind. And now cinematic games are standard, and we still appreciate them, but like that was like the first time I did that. And then with Final Fantasy VII, I've actually never beaten Final Fantasy VII. I played it many times, but I watched Chevy beat it a couple times, and that game just, I mean, is amazing. It's Final Fantasy VII for a fucking reason. The cinematics in that are fucking amazing. The CGI back then, mind blowing. It's like watching a movie. The storyline was really good. The characters are all really cool. Even back then when I didn't like JRPGs, the combat was really cool looking. I always liked watching the limit breaks and shit. Just some really, really cool shit that just kind of paved the way for what to expect in the future of gaming.
I played a shit ton, now I think about it, of outside of JRPGs. I played a lot of Tomba.
Oh, dude.
It was a great platforming game.
Love Tomba.
Crash Bandicoot is like par for course for anybody with a PlayStation. I played a shit ton of that. But I spent probably most of my time outside of JRPGs playing Monster Rancher.
Oh, yeah. We
played
also
a crap ton of Monster
We just had a
Rancher.
stack of just fucking CDs from around the house.
Yep. You would just steal CDs from everywhere you could to try to get monsters and things like that.
Which is a really neat idea back then. There's some really innovative ideas that they were coming up with that early on.
It was so much fun. I just remember me and my brother spending hours upon hours upon hours of playing that game. There really wasn't much to the whole core concept of the game. You're just raising monsters and fighting them in the battle arena. I mean, there was
Micromanaging, man.
Yeah. There was supposedly some little storyline behind it, but I never followed that.
I didn't even know there was a storyline. I thought it was just put a disc in and see what you get.
Yeah, and then they ended up making, obviously, more of them. It kind of dwindled off,
I
unfortunately.
don't know how they would be able to do that nowadays.
I don't know. I know
Blu-rays,
when they brought it to
MP3s.
Game Boy, you put words in instead.
Oh, that's interesting.
So
There was one for a while that you would scan QWERTYs and barcodes to get different monsters and things like that.
yeah, I think you should just use your mobile phone for that. That makes sense. Barcodes
Yeah.
and stuff.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of another early on game I really...
Another early on game I played, not early on, but about midway, it was still in the 90s, was Trag, which is an awful game. It was set up like Resident Evil and the tank controls. And you were it was essentially Die Hard. You were in a tower filled with terrorists, and you pick a guy or a girl who's like part of this elite SWAT team squad. Looked very anime-esque. The guy had spiky hair. She had blonde hair. He would do this move where he would jump upside down, do the splits, and shoot somebody, and then land. But I'd also want to revisit that game because it's been a long time since I played it. But that game was interesting. And then, of course, like we were talking about earlier, I remember whatever game you were thinking of. I think
I was thinking.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Ape Escape. Ape Escape came out, and I remember when that first came out, they were talking about the DualShock. And I remember looking at pictures in magazines back in the day when there's magazines, for anyone who's fucking too young to even remember any of this. Remember, there was a time that dual analogs on a fucking controller was not a thing. Even though there were analogs on controllers before that, they weren't standardized. They only worked for certain games, blah, 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 blah. But I thought there were just like 2 big fucking buttons. I was like, they just added 2 buttons? Whatever. And then, I picked it up and like, I remember it was so fucking weird to play. I was like, oh God, you have to move these things around. And
yeah, it was hard enough with the 64 getting used to one of them for movement, and then the PlayStation threw a second one at you. So.
Yep. Which is now completely standard. You have to have that to make a competent console. The idea of having one analog. I mean, even the fucking 3DS added the little nubbin.
Which is great.
Which is awesome, yeah, because it needed it. It was really smart placement, small, didn't take up real estate. But yeah, just that, watching that grow into what it is now, just the standard of movement and looking in games, it's just really interesting to see its origin of just essentially a new way to do moves and move your character.
Yeah.
I'm drawing such a blank. I know I played Soul Blade on that as well. That was the predecessor to Soul Calibur.
You remember like Tekken?
Yep,
Tekken 2,
Virtua
which was
Fighter.
awesome.
Well, Virtua Fighter, I guess, wasn't on that.
I don't know if it was. I don't remember
It was
that.
on Dreamcast.
I think so.
Tekken was dope. I remember playing like Air Guys,
Oh yeah.
which was I think it was Square
Yep.
Soft at the time. Their like Darius type game, whatever the hell it's called. Gradius.
That was an Einhander.
Oh, Einhander, yeah. And Air Guys was the fighting game. Yeah, I get them
Might have
confused.
it backwards or whatever.
Yeah, Einhander was really neat. Did you guys ever play that? I think it was called One. It was like Bruce Willis. It was a side-scrolling game.
Yep. Yeah,
He
I
did the
remember
voice
that.
acting for it. That game was awful. It was awful.
There was so many games that came out for PlayStation. Like, it was like I was there every weekend at the video store renting a new game and trying new things out.
Well, and like the genres were so diverse back then too. Like you could just make whatever the fuck and hope it caught on. Nowadays, people lock into what they know is going to sell pretty much.
A lot of fishing games back in the day.
Yeah,
Yep.
which is weird. Golf games, Hot Shots Golf.
Oh god, yeah.
Oh god, what's the snowboarding game?
Cool boarding?
SSX?
Oh, it is SSX.
Did that come out for PlayStation? I thought it was PS2.
I think Tricky was PS2.
Snowboarding Kids. No, I think that might have been 64.
That's
That's the 64.
Yeah. Anyway, I just remember snowboarding games were really popular and they were really fun.
Tony Hawk.
Oh yeah.
Holy shit,
Tony
I played
Hawk
a ton
2.
of that game.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh.
Tony Hawk 2 is still like the best Tony Hawk just because the soundtrack was awesome. It just had really fun maps with a lot of secrets and just flowed really well. They didn't get too crazy with like new ideas that they brought up in the next games. But yeah, Tony Hawk 1.
They had a lot of I don't know if extreme sport is the right word for it or not, type games, because even like Dave Mirra's BMX and God, I can't even think right now. There was I just remember there being a bunch of like this game is all about bikes, this one's all about skateboarding, this one's all about snowboarding, and now like a lot of games just go, here's all that stuff. So
Another really interesting thing about the PlayStation 2 is also kind of a new way to start porting games that weren't on console. You had like Diablo. I remember trying to play that when I was a kid. I couldn't fucking figure it out when I was a kid for some reason. Nowadays, I'm sure I'd pick it up and be fine. Oh god, what was it called? Rainbow Six. Rainbow Six was on there. I remember fucking loving that game because you could like enter from like 4 different ways on every level, and like it was all tactical. It was an experience I wasn't used to really playing at the time because we didn't have a fucking dope ass PC back then. I don't think a whole lot of people did. It was an interesting time to be able to play games that weren't really available on consoles prior. What are some of your guys' favorite games for PlayStation?
Final Fantasy VII is like cliche at this point, but
Definitely.
I really liked Monster Hunter. Just copious hours of that. Armored Core. Final Fantasy Tactics was really big for me during that time.
Hunter?
I didn't play Monster Hunter until way later. I meant Monster Rancher.
I think you meant Monster Rancher.
That's what I meant. Monster Rancher.
Threw me off. I was like, that's not PS1.
PlayStation 2, yeah. It's also
Monster
a good console.
Rancher. And Tactics was just like it for me, really.
My list is very similar. Final Fantasy 7, Final Fantasy Tactics 7, or 7, 8, 9, I should say. I did actually. It's funny because I completely forgot about Monster Rancher, but I literally dumped stupid amount of hours.
Yeah, we played the shit out of that.
Armored Core.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like
Probably should have prepared lists for this, but we're just pulling it out of our heads right now.
Breath of Fire. I played a lot of on there.
Beyond the Beyond. That game looked like garbage.
I wasn't really into that one. I have a whole bunch of them in the
Got
garage.
3 I'm gonna throw out there. Metal Gear Solid, of course, my favorite series of all time. Metal Gear Solid being one of the best out of the series. Gran Turismo 2 specifically.
Yeah, we cracked out on that game.
Fucking amazing. 2 discs, so many cars. The game, it's funny when you look back at it now, but like I remember back then I was like, it's so realistic looking. Oh my god. And every Gran Turismo comes out, I'm like, it's so realistic looking. And I look at the next one, or the last one, I'm like, it looks good for the time. And then, of course, Silent Hill. Silent Hill is the best horror series ever. Silent Hill 2 being the best fucking survival horror game ever made. But Silent Hill 1 was fucking phenomenal. It brought the same things that I loved about Metal Gear Solid to horror games. It was cinematic. It had really cool, interesting characters with a great story and fucking horrifying. I still play that game. I'm like, ugh, there's little invisible baby kids walking around this dark-ass school.
Castlevania Symphony of the Night.
Oh, fuck yeah.
Grand Theft Auto.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
The original with the top-down one.
And then the UK edition one.
Yep.
No, Castlevania is re-released on everything ever, constantly, for a reason. It's the best Castlevania game, in my opinion. I'm sure there's one that somebody will argue is the better, kind of like 7 and Final Fantasy 6. People always argue which one's better. What was the second one you said after Castlevania?
Don't think I did.
I said GTA.
GTA, thank you. GTA, not as impactful as GTA 3 when I played that, because that was like the first time I played like an open world game where you do whatever the fuck you want. But even back then, I was just as impressed with it as I was with like Road Rash. I remember playing Road Rash. Oh, Road Rash on PlayStation. It's fucking awesome. Fucking Mean Machine. You could get knocked off your bike and you could like run down the road to get back on your bike. And for some reason, when I was younger, because there wasn't open world games, I was just like, holy shit, I can just run around. This is crazy. But it's so limited. But yeah, Grand Theft Auto, I was just like, you mean I can just take that car, even though you can't see like 10 feet ahead of you, so you're just like going 100 miles per hour and just hoping you don't drive off a bridge. But yeah, that game was dope. Fucking kind of was the earlier version of Rockstar where they're just going for shock value, which obviously worked. Now they still do it a little bit, but they've kind of become this monster of a company. Any other games? Throw them out there. Remember anything else? Tomba 2, those were really good games. Everyone remembers Jumping Jack Flash for some reason as like a good game. I have revisited those games. I played them back in the day, wasn't impressed. Played them again in recent years. Those games are kind of fucking garbage.
Yeah,
and I'm with as much people as I know fucking love those games. Don't fucking kill me over it. It's like it's a first-person platformer, which I can appreciate what they're going for, but it was just, I don't know, I just feel like shit. Speaking of platformers, Spyro, was that for the original PlayStation?
I'm
pretty sure it was. So. Spyro was interesting. Gex was okay.
Oh my god, I spent so many hours playing that game.
Really?
I totally forgot.
I'm so like tempted to just go out in the garage and find my PlayStation 1 discs. I have a bunch. Legend of Dragoon.
Oh, that was a good one.
I never got into that, but I know a lot of people who were into it. I'm really surprised they never made, or did they make a sequel?
They didn't, and it's funny because it's under Sony's umbrella. Too.
Yeah,
it's not like a third-party game.
I'd like to see them bring that back, but when Square Enix has their shit together,
it's not Square.
It's not
Sony.
Oh, it's Sony.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I was about to say because they brought back Parasite Eve and they fucked it. So Parasite Eve.
Oh shit! Yeah, Parasite Eve.
Parasite Eve was cool. It's a really neat idea, especially at the time when you had the fantasy RPGs and then Final Fantasy VII had come out and had this sci-fi landscape that was neat, and then Parasite Eve brought a kind of modern but had this crazy virus parasite twist to it, which was really interesting.
Was Dino Crisis PlayStation 1 or 2?
Yep. It was PlayStation.
God, I played that
Yeah, because it was Capcom. It was
Scared the
Resident
fuck
Evil.
out of me.
Resident Evil was fantastic, revolutionary. Loved that game. Resident Evil 2 is the one most people started on. I actually played
That's
Resident
what I
Evil early on. Resident Evil 2 was awesome as well. 3, I wasn't a big fan of. It got a little too actiony. Started out the game with a fucking machine gun and stuff, and I was like, eh. Plus the one dude, I forgot his name, Nemesis. Stores. Fucking yeah, I'm not into that bro. What else? Let's see.
Xenogears was another JRPG I liked.
Yeah, I never played that too
One.
much.
I liked it because it was one of the first games I played where combat wasn't just like hit the attack button. It was like you would be like circle, circle, X, triangle, or whatever, and you would do a combo, and then if you got like a correct combo, it would end in like a flashy like finisher type thing.
Yeah.
And then if you also would go from that to mech combat, and then another JRPG, which is one of probably the best RPGs out there, is Suikoden 2 was also on PlayStation.
What was the Mana game that was on there?
Legends of Mana.
Yeah.
That game was dope.
Which I
I
love.
emulate that game so much. I've downloaded emulations of it so many fucking times. I have a physical
never
copy.
actually done that.
Yeah.
No.
He's never illegally downloaded anything. Nor have I.
I have a physical copy of it, so I just download things to make it run on my computer.
Yeah.
Chrono Cross.
Yep.
That has one of the best soundtracks in
yeah.
gaming, in my
Oh
opinion.
yeah.
Weren't a fan of it.
I never played it.
I didn't play much of it, but I loved the visual style, and I loved
The soundtrack's amazing.
the soundtrack was fucking phenomenal. Same thing with Silent Hill. Had great cinematics.
Chrono Cross is a weird one, right? Because it's a really good game. It's barely a sequel.
Mm-hmm.
It does have a
Just
tie-in,
tied, yeah.
but it is. As far as like a sequel goes, it's weak in that regard, but it is a solid like game. Plus, one other thing, because I'm going to bring up Star Ocean as well, that came out during the generation. PlayStation had a lot of RPGs that came out that had just like ridiculous amounts of endings.
Yep.
Chrono Cross and Star Ocean both had like more endings than you're going to sit, try to find out. So you would talk with your friends and see what endings they got and stuff. So I remember, in fact, when I beat Chrono Cross, my ending was so silly because I just like, I think, Serge, I can't remember the main guy's name right now.
Surge.
I walked into this shop and one of the gals is like tending the shop, and apparently like I had married that guy or whatever, and that was their life. They just owned a shop now, and I was like,
It's interesting.
what the fuck? Like, but it's because it wasn't the true ending. So I missed something somewhere, obviously.
Oh, Bushido Blade.
Oh yeah,
1 and 2.
we played those early in this channel's life too.
Yep. Those games were dope. Those are games I would love to see come back. This back when Square was a little more adventurous in their games. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I could probably continue to list off JRPGs pretty easily, but
Yeah,
I'm trying to find other games that I played on there. I was pretty much primarily a role-playing game person after experiencing on that console. So
Where would you guys rank the PlayStation as your favorite consoles of all time? Doesn't have to be a number, just high, low, number, doesn't matter.
definitely high.
Definitely very high.
Yeah.
It
Easily top 5 for me.
yeah.
Probably
Yeah.
top 3.
and like I kind of said earlier, it kind of solidified my preference in gaming.
Yeah.
So-
Definite like shift into what you would become as a gamer for sure.
Also, give them props for making like the first, at least to my knowledge, multimedia machine, because
Yeah.
it played music CDs,
Right.
which
right.
we
Yeah.
didn't see before.
And we've seen this happen over and over and over again with all of Sony's consoles.
Yeah.
With the DVD player with the PS2, the Blu-ray player with the PS3, PS4. I mean, I don't know if it brought anything new like that, but overall, it's a dope console. But yeah, back then that was kind of a big deal because like, again, I'm probably talking to people who are pretty young. You had to buy like CD players and shit to play these things. You could buy a console and be able to do that, and it was
Yeah,
cool.
because home stereo systems are huge.
Yeah.
Or you would
Cost
have
hundreds
like
of dollars.
a stereo that would take like 1,000,000 D batteries, and it'd skip all the time and shit. And, the PlayStation actually like would play CDs like really well until the lasers start dying out, but that's early technology. So
Yep.
One thing it also introduced that I don't miss at all is memory cards.
I kind of miss memory cards.
Really?
Yeah.
It was kind of cool being portable, but now there's the clouds. You can do that as well. But there is a certain charm to having your memory card full of your saves and all that stuff, like in a collection sense.
I can go in my room right now and grab my PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2 memory cards.
Still have a PlayStation 2 memory card for like Metal Gear Solid, but like 2 and 3 and stuff like that. But I don't have a PlayStation 1 anymore.
My Final Fantasy 7 save is on there.
Still?
Yeah. So
you know, fucking boot that thing up and see what's going on there.
Oh, I've played the game multiple times at this point, so it's just there for nostalgia at this point. So.
Yeah. Unless you guys have something else you want to bring up about the PlayStation, we should probably cut this short.
I mean, not really. It was a huge step for where gaming is now, for sure.
Made that leap from essentially the maturing toys to into full on entertainment for everybody.
Definitely maturing the market quite a bit.
Yeah.
I mean, it did kind of what the Sega Genesis had done, because like Sega Genesis also was like kind of maturing gaming a little bit, but still had like a lot of like just like wonky, just like for fun, games, which obviously there's nothing wrong with. I love that kind of stuff, but. Well, you're jumping ahead. I mean, like Mortal Kombat was on
the Genesis was going for a more mature demographic because they were trying to get something that the Nintendo wasn't.
Yeah.
And then the 64 came out, and it was still kind of fun and cartoony stuff. And then PlayStation came out, and then this fucking Resident Evil's on there. Like, this is not what games are like. So huge step in that direction, and we are where we're at today. I would argue because of that system. So.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, like I've already said a couple times now, that was just that jump that solidified it as the home console that everybody would end up be buying like into the future. All these consoles now, the PlayStation kind of was the one that let people know, hey, this is not just for kids. And I fucking love it. It's definitely one of my favorite consoles of all time. I have great memories of it, and I still like to go back and play games off of it. But let us know in the comments. What do you think of the PlayStation? What was some of your favorite games? Did we miss any? I mean, we named off quite a bit. There's so much more to name off. And yeah, let us know also, is there any consoles or games you'd like us to talk about in our early impressions of what we remember when we first tried them? Let us know. But I think that's going to do it for this episode of Loot Chest on Taste Loot Gaming. As always, thank you for watching. Make sure to like, subscribe if you enjoyed this episode. Make sure to check out our other episodes. Make sure to check us out on Tumblr, Twitter, Taste Loot Gaming. Check us out on Twitch, Sleep Division. And as always, thank you for watching. My name's Seth.
I'm Chevy.
And I'm Chris.
And until next week for Tasty Tuesday, have a great weekend, guys, and take it easy.